Last week's dirt round took place on a track less than half a mile in length. Never satisfied with letting the drivers sit still, the series organizers now plop them down on the 2-mile monster that is Michigan International Speedway. Hopping back into the ARCA cars for the second time, will anyone have learned from the previous outing? We'll find out as we get ready to watch round 6 of the South Sound Speedway E-Series. You'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is DJ Clark. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Michigan is a bad, fast oval that shouldn't be taken lightly. To explain why, let's head to our track guide.
Welcome to the Michigan International Speedway. This 2-mile D-shaped oval located in the beautiful Irish hills of southern Michigan, sitting about an hour and a half's drive to the southwest of Detroit along I-94, right in the backyard of Chevrolet and Ford. When you're that close to Detroit power, your speedway better live up to the hype. 18-degree banked corners with a 12-degree banked front stretch allow for maximum power and lots of action. The higher downforce Indy cars were able to put on spectacular shows of driver bravery and talent. In recent years, it's played host to mostly the tin top cars, as the NASCAR Cup, Xfinity, Gander Truck, and even ARCA Series have all hosted events here in the last decade. Michigan is a wide, sweeping oval, but it isn't harmless. The lowest groove of the corners near the bottom can be your very best friend in the IndyCar, but your worst enemy in the tin tops. Cars will frequently get loose that far down the track, causing chaos for the pack behind. Michigan is all about speed and lots of it. Often the drivers that find the most success here are the ones willing to experiment around the track and find grip their competitors haven't. The facility in recent years has doubled down on fan comfort as well, giving more elbow room, redoing seats, camping areas, even providing Wi-Fi to watch all of these live broadcasts in the grandstands of all the sections. All in all, Michigan has become a staple of American motorsports since it opened in 1968. Fans and drivers both always look forward to when the schedules come back to the beautiful Irish hills of southern Michigan. Fast speeds, high action, it's all here at Michigan International Speedway, where it's your speed.
This, of course, being the legacy version of Michigan. It's going to have all the bumps and whatnot, and what are very powerful cars. So, DJ, this is going to be an interesting night.
It certainly is, and especially considering the fact that iRacing has implemented some new aerodynamic effects for these ARCA Chevys. They are able to ride up on that wall pocket if you're able to do it, get that side force going along, so we may see some brave souls up near the wall on this 2-mile oval. Obviously, that GSRC lap guide ran you through what she looks like, but in these ARCAs, there are multiple lines you can take. You can take that high side, you can run the middle line. I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of people running too low tonight, Joe, because tire wear is going to be a big issue for these guys. These high-powered cars, you're going to see a lot of wheel spin, so anything they can do to minimize that tire spin, that's going to be what they're going to want to do.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain that it's going to be key, especially with how high the temperatures we've been seeing are. But before we take a look at, I want to remind you of our sponsors, including Key Property Services. Key Property Services, Inc. is a locally owned full-service property management, real estate, and construction contracting company. KPS has been serving the greater Clark County area for over 30 years. For more information, visit kpsinc.net. Key Property Services, where service is the key. The race is also brought to you by United Roofs. As specialists in residential and commercial roofing services, they're dedicated to providing customer service that is second to none. Whether you have a new construction project or it's time for repairs, they offer the roofing services you need. To learn how to book a free estimate, go to unitedroofs.com. Let's take a look at the championship points up to this part of the season. And of course, as we pull those up, you can see Travis Barnes leading quite a bit over Isaiah Gill, where it gets very tight for that second position. Eric Johnson Jr. just about 3 points behind. Then you got a little bit of a jump in another very close battle for fourth place with Kenneth Garber and Andrew Johnson. only separated by a single point over there. What about for the race details for today, DJ? What are the drivers up against?
Well, we are on the 6 of 12 rounds here in this series. Tonight, we're going to be racing those ARCA Menard Chevrolet Impalas. Like we said, it is a 60-lap race around here. That means it's going to be a long one. We talked about the tire wear. It's going to be key because you've only got 3 sets of spare tires. That is going to be very, very crucial when you decide to take them. If you decide to take the lefts, the rights, all of that we see a lot of time in any of this stock car racing. And then finally, the biggest thing to keep in mind is caution flags are not automatically thrown by by iRacing. They are enabled by race control. So if there's a wreck that they think can get cleaned by the time these cars circle back around on these 2 miles, race control will let it go and stay green. So hopefully that means a lot of green flag racing here at Michigan.
Yeah, we saw another league earlier this week go pretty much the entire race without any cautions here at Michigan. So it is possible. And drivers will have to be on their toes, especially with how difficult these cars can be. We're just getting ready for the qualifying as they've got a drivers meeting right now. Not the biggest of fields, so hopefully that will help clean things up as well. This has been an interesting series, hopping from car to car, from track to track, basically trying to test the versatilities of these drivers, at least on the oval side. Going from dirt last week to almost the complete polar opposite, is that going to be a tough transition today, DJ?
Well, normally I would say not necessarily, because you see a lot of guys being able to do that across series, going from dirt to modifieds to late models, anything like that. But I got to be honest, Joe, running a big super speedway like Michigan in these scorching temperatures that we are seeing on track, there is a lack of grip everywhere. So I think it's going to be a real challenge. You can see it right there. It's only 85 degrees in the air, but it is a whopping 127 degrees track temperature, almost no wind to speak of, and a 55% humidity. So that track surface is positively boiling, and it's going to be just so difficult. And I think some of the guys that you saw really excel on dirt, the handling is just so much different when you've got a car slipping and sliding across pavement.
So, especially considering we saw a lot of drivers that had a little trouble trying to keep them under control back at Phoenix. Oh, are we in for a handful here today? As we just got about 2 minutes left in the warm-up, and I think it sounds like they're just about done with this drivers meeting that they've currently got going on, just kind of chatting, making sure that everybody's up to speed on what's expected of the drivers. So they will have a live steward, as was mentioned, both throwing cautions and keeping an eye on what's happening with the racing out there. The fun news is, in all of this season, up next, they have another one of their non-championship rounds. And that's going to be over in the 87 Cup cars, DJ. So I'm honestly really looking forward to that.
I am too. iRacing throwing in those old throwback 87 cars that are an absolute blast to drive. You want to talk about slipping and sliding, Joe. It is so hard to get the power down perfectly in those things, and they are just, it's a blast from the past, and they're so much fun no matter what track you go on. Always a good time.
So we look forward to this 2-miler here today, one of the more unique ovals, especially on the NASCAR schedule, with not many really being other than a 2.5 or a 1.5 mile oval along the season. This 2 is sort of like an in-betweener, and it's got a lot of banking. Incredibly, for those not familiar with the racing history of this circuit, they even had IndyCar running here for quite a long time. They haven't been back for a number of years. The speeds have just gotten maybe a little too dangerous for open wheelers with the downforce that they have to be able to race safely around here. But when you get a chance, definitely go and look up some of the old events that CART and USAC used to hold at this place back in the day. Just about 30 seconds left to go. Let's see if we can get our usuals up at the top. I see that Isaiah Gill, though he is shown, has not put a time in practice, so we have no idea where he's going to sit compared to guys like Barnes and Johnson Jr., who have been quick just about every round that we've been at so far.
Yeah, they're going to be ones to certainly keep an eye on as we get out into qualifying here. You know, we have 3 laps for these guys to set a time, but Joe, I got to think that that first lap is probably going to be the quickest, guys. As we mentioned earlier, 127-degree tack temperature. That's going to boil those tires, and so they've got to get out and get their fast laps in as quick as possible.
Yeah, I could see how that would be the case, especially considering the new tire model on iRacing can affect how these cars handle over the course of even a short stint, like 3 laps. Looks like qualifying started, and Andy Johnson's going to be one of the first to take his car out, along with Dichinowski, as they slowly work them up to speed. Almost looks like they're treating them like qualifying tires a little bit, as they're not going terribly fast out of here. Probably trying to stay pretty ginger, make sure they don't burn up at all. It was, again, during our practice, Travis Barnes, who was the quickest of anybody. So we'll be watching out for him once he gets onto the track. And it looks like he hasn't shown up yet, so he's giving it a second to see how everybody else fares.
Well, and it's worth mentioning as we get ready to watch these cars starting their flying laps, that pit exit is surprisingly difficult. It's a very narrow stretch of asphalt, not banked, completely flat as you go out there, and we've said just how much power these ARCAs hold underneath them. Very easy to spin the tire, spin the car out. So if we have a round of green flag stops, don't be surprised if you see some guys treating the tires exactly like we saw them here. As there you have on screen Andy Johnson working his way around. You see him taking that sort of higher line, not wanting to wear anything out too easily. He may be going for a faster second lap, just trying to get the tires in a perfect operating temperature.
So let's see as we start to get this some times on the board. Looks like Andy Johnson is got the fastest of the times. Travis Barnes is now out there. Ryan Mccloud goes third of the drivers. They can't wait too long. It takes about 40-some seconds to get out on the track. Isaiah Gill, I love that. I just noticed it's a Daytona USA homage paint on his car. That is absolutely perfect. So, as I was mentioning, the drivers have got to start hustling if they haven't started yet. Looks like Ryan Mccloud still at the bottom of our drivers with a time. Dichinowski not able to go quicker on his second lap. Same thing with Andy Johnson. So your predictions look to be coming true that any lap past the first one might be a little bit difficult to find time.
It very well might be, but I'm looking out of the corner of my eye. We're seeing a couple of drivers abandoning their third lap, trying to dive at the pits. Maybe a strategy there to try to go in and do that again, but we see Jeff Peterson crossing the line right there, 41.723. That's going to put him back in 8th position. Eric Johnson heads on by, unable to improve, about 0.03 of a second off. Here comes Dichinowski coming across the line. He is able to improve, so good for him on that one. That'll bump him up to 6th. There, Presley puts in his first time, puts him 5th. Mccloud, looks like he was able to improve as well.
Dagenstein's first lap, good enough for 11th. As we watch Isaiah Gill, third lap, not quicker. His second one will be his best, and that'll put him in 6th spot. So Sean Jones, good enough for 12th on his first lap, but not able to find time the next time around. Wonder what Christopher White can do, as we now watch him come across in the number 83. First time lap is going to be a 40.6. That's actually good enough for pole.
Great lap there from Christopher, really hustling it across the line. AJ Williamson able to improve. William Potts, I believe that is a first lap for him, way off the pace there. So we're watching here Sean Jones trying to better his 42.8, currently 13th, crosses the line. Much better time for him, a 41.7. That's going to bump him up the charts. Jeff Peterson, he is able to improve on his time. Not sure if that's actually going to change his position, though. He'll stay in 10th.
Kyle Matthews finally gets one on the board, but that's the only one he's going to have, and that'll put him 12th at highest, unfortunately, as Christopher White comes around, and looks like that second lap just about a 10th off of his best. Travis Barnes looks like he'll have to stay in third as his final lap not any faster. Down to 7 seconds left, and nobody else has the time to cross the line. Kyle Matthews going to be just shy here as the clock ticks to 0. So let's go through our starting order. Christopher White will be on the pole with Eric Johnson starting in second. It is Travis Barnes in P3 and AJ Williamson to his outside in fourth. Andy Johnson starts P5, and then row 3 completed by Derek Presley. Isaiah Gill starts 7th, and the last part of the first half is going to be Matthew Dichinowski, DJ, starting in P8.
Coming in behind him is going to be Ryan Mccloud, followed by Jeff Peterson in 10th. Lining up 11th is going to be Chris Torres, and flanking him will be Kyle Matthews. Sean Jones will line up 13th, followed by Scott Dengenstein, and then William Potts and Kenneth Garber making up that last row of 15th and 16th. Garber not setting a time here today.
So one thing also to think about in this is that the drivers do have to watch out for debris if they do get into accidents, because it's got the new damage model, and I have seen a few of the wrecks that they've had during the warm-up here, DJ, and they certainly go scattering, especially at the high speeds they're running.
They most certainly do. There's pieces and parts flying off the car left, right, and center. It's a really impressive job. And the important thing to keep in mind about that new damage model is it's not just what it does to the car, it's what the car throws back out onto the track. So you can run over a piece of debris and get a little damage yourself. So all drivers have to be super aware of that.
They take off behind the Mustang pace car, getting ready to head out on what is going to be a 60-lap race here in these ARC cars. Takes a while to get around under caution, so let's hope that we don't have too many of those as the race progresses.
Fingers crossed we don't, and like we said, I think this is one of those things where the race stewards are really going to come into effect here. This is such a long track, 40-second lap times in qualifying, so you got to think about around that 4 race trim as well. So hopefully we'll be able to get these races clear and stay green for the whole session here that we have, all 60 laps around this monster 2-mile oval.
As they slowly work up to speed. Not seeing anybody trying to warm the tires up this time on these cars. Oh, maybe one of them. Not sure who we're on board with here. Looks like towards the back of the pack. Looks like Sean Jones trying to get just a little bit of temperature for when he gets on the loud pedal. They do have a lot of power, so maybe he just wants that tiny little more grip for when they start to pick up speed and get himself an edge. What's Christopher White going to do on the start? There goes the pace car. He's got control. The 83 waits. Green flag is out, and they're on the loud pedal. So far, a clean start. Everybody just getting them wound up as they plunge down towards turn 1. Behind him, Eric Johnson just dropping back a little bit. And Travis Barnes already pulling up the rear bumper. And look at that, the momentum on the high side for the number 14 coming into play suddenly, and he is up to the front.
Yeah, it looks like it may have just taken a half a second for him to get that to lick up, but there it comes into full effect. Looking like that mid to high line gonna be the fastest line here, at least if Barnes has anything to say about it. You can see as those cars go by, those hot track temps cause the cars to slide just ever so slightly in mid-corner, but as they cross the line, it is gonna be Johnson, White, Barnes, and Williamson.
I'm honestly amazed at how sideways they are driving these things, considering, well, and we got a car in the wall. That is going to be Barnes. He gets turned around. Big wreck involving multiple cars. Derek Presley involved with that one. Caution is, see Jeff Peterson involved along with Kyle Matthews. And we very quickly get a demonstration of the new damage model.
There you can see it. This is the end of the accident. Barnes just coming down the track, nowhere to go for those cars behind him. Multiple cars collected, hoods flying up. Everybody good moves from there from those mid-pack guys to get out and away from it. We're going to jump back here. We're going to go on board with Barnes.
So he's going to get loose, it seems. After this, I'd love to see the view from Sean Jones. Remember I mentioned he was trying to warm his tires up? Well, I guess that paid off. I touched the wall. That's all it took. Virtual tethers holding onto that tire nice and well, thankfully. And he was just on the spin cycle from there on out. Gets it pointed back forward. The good news is that they do have a spare car, but unfortunately a lot of drivers are going to have to already use that early on. Here's Jones' perspective. He's going to manage to avoid everything. Just barely, though, as some cars come steaming through.
I didn't even see that contact in the back there in front of Jones, but absolutely great job for him to get up and out of the way. I think for the most part, everybody should be able to escape here relatively easily, although it does look like Barnes had to take a tow into the pits, and that will put him a lap down. Presley looking like he may as well, so those two are going to be put a lap down, but everybody else looks like they've been able to get back, get under steam, and take that spare car.
Yeah, there's Presley coming out with a fresh car. And Jeff Peterson and Kyle Matthews were able to drive it down to the lane. Barnes looks like he's going to go a lap down, sadly. We do not have Scott Dagenstein. I think he might have been a did not start, it appears.
He's not showing up on our screen, so there you can see that's Matthews and Peterson coming to a stop in their pit box. That car right in the front of your screen, though, that is Travis Barnes, still sitting there looking like he's getting worked on the car. I'm not sure if he has stepped away at the moment. He still shows as registered in the SimSo, so seeing what he's gonna do as they gather themselves back up here to get going again. Hoping we don't have that. You know, Joe, I think really what that looked like to me was Barnes was just trying to get a little bit of that side draft that we talked about up on the wall, get that bubble into effect, and that safer barrier just kind of came out and tagged him.
So that seems to be a bit of a dangerous ploy for anybody that is attempting that. Derek Presley was incredibly lucky because even though he had to take that tow, or it seemed that he took a tow, he got out just in time to stay on the lead lap, and he's going to cycle back around to the back of the field. Number 4 restarting in 13th place. Jeff Peterson is back out, and looks like Kyle Matthews is also back on the track. Yeah, I think Barnes might have forgot to set his spare car and is not going to be taking it here. So he's going to have to sit and wait for everything to get banged back into place by the team, which might take a while considering how much of a lick he took all around. And lights go out on the pace car, so thankfully we should be going back to green on lap 6.
And you see these guys starting to cycle back into that 2x2. We are, of course, doing double file restarts here, so everybody going to line that up. You know, I have to give credit on the warming tires. They looked like everyone was able to keep it in relatively decent line. Just that error with the safer barrier with Barnes that we talked about, what caused that big accident. So nothing major that's going to cause me a lot of concern for cautions to come. Knock on wood, obviously.
I'm looking through the fields, and I'm not sure if maybe I've got a different picture. Does the number 18 of Dichinowski have damage on the front of his car still? Yes, he does. Ooh, it's not looking good. And this is a very aero-sensitive track. I'm a bit surprised that he hasn't come in to get that fixed.
I am too, and that's, that's not a type of damage like if you're running an open wheel car and you've got something on your front wing that you can't really see if it's there. For Dichinowski, it's pretty apparent. You're going to tell that that hood is crinkled up pretty hard, so I'm not sure what he's thinking here. Wouldn't be surprised if we unfortunately see him drop down the order once this session goes back to green.
All right, well, he's probably going to hope for another caution as soon as he figures out the pace is likely not there for that car. The pace car is in. Johnson Jr. now has control of the field. And we are green. Down into the line, a much bigger jump for Eric Johnson compared to what we saw before. Christopher White, who is going to stay up to the high side. Maybe saw what the 14 was able to do with that speed through 1 and 2. And indeed, look at the only car in the low line, the number 2 of AJ Williamson, dropping back very fast.
Yeah, that low line really not looking like it's going to be successful, at least on the first laps here. That middle to high line really being successful. We're going to get it nice and easy side by side going through 3 and 4 now. That's Johnson and Torres keeping it together. Right ahead of them is AJ Williamson. Everybody stays in line. Looks like we've got a green flag lap in the books here. Hopefully they can keep it clean again. Diving out to the outside. And again, though, that battle continues. Johnson sets the fast lap, though.
Chris Torres still on the low side. I think Kenneth Garber might fancy taking that one away. Look at them fan out, though. Someone going way up to the high side. That's the number 2 of Williamson. Doesn't work out for him. He's going to be overtaken by Andy Johnson in his very Christmassy car. The 28 grabs P4.
Grabs P4, gets right in front of him where he needs to. That looks like he's going to try to go back for an over-under. Not exactly successful, but he is going to be able to tuck right up behind that Christmas car. Get a nice draft for Williamson, poking his head this way and that, trying to figure out the best way by and starting this new lap.
I can report that Travis Barnes is back out on the track, but he's 2 laps down, trying to make his way through the field. As the 28 still at the head of this second pack. The top 3 have broken away from them. That's Eric Johnson Jr., Christopher White, and Isaiah Gill, who lead the entire field, but are pretty much solitary on their own, kind of spread out at the front.
Yeah, not exactly what I would have expected. I would have expected a little bit more pack racing here. But as you can see, Johnson just really pulling away. White and Gill just kind of holding on and hoping, thinking maybe something's going to come into play a little bit later in this race. But right now, Eric Johnson is the class of the field.
And they're going to see lap traffic soon because, remember I mentioned Dichinowski? He is 50 miles an hour off the pace. I don't think he should probably keep trying this. I think he needs to come in and just take a spare car, go the lap down, and swallow his pride, because this is not appearing to work very well, and actually could be a danger for the leaders as they start to come through.
I'm a little surprised the race control hasn't issued a black flag to them. They're really catching up to him like he is standing still, and truthfully, 50 miles an hour down, he almost is standing still.
So Eric Johnson Jr. is going to be the first upon him as they plunge back into turn 1 once again. Should be able to get by him this lap, at least the first few cars. Right up to the outside wall on the exit, as I believe we are riding on board with our leader. Yes, as he grabs a little bit of slipstream. Dichinowski stays low. In fact, he's going to stay down on the apron. And I think, is he making the decision to finally come in? No, he's going to continue to try and stay out.
Got very close to contact with that P4 battle we have been following there. Luckily, everybody able to get back in line. I have no idea what Dichinowski's thinking here, but you can see that great battle on your screen. That's AJ Williamson, Andy Johnson, Kenneth Garber, and Chris Torres. Yep, we added another car to that mix. Oh, there's a little bumping and rubbing going down the backstretch.
Very close between the pair of them. Barnes, remember, is a lap down among these 4, so he's not racing for position. He's just trying to get his lap back. Williamson and Andy Johnson daring to get quite close. A little bit of a slide behind them. You could see the white number 96 just climbing the hill and having to get out of it.
That's the first time those super hot tire temperatures are coming into play. We've only been green for about 6 laps, and you can already see the degradation that's starting to happen. But that battle in front between Johnson and Williamson, absolutely electric. Williamson right behind now, tucking up into the draft, down the backstretch, seeing what he can do. As there you see it. Is he going to go down to the inside? He's been liking that inside line, making it work for him a little bit. Looks like that the momentum on the outside is going to carry Andy Johnson, but Johnson slips up the track ever so slightly. Those tires just proving a handful for absolutely everybody here today.
We did have a little bit of a wreck on the backstretch. This was Derek Presley and Sean Jones. Both are rolling, so I don't think we're going to get any caution for it. They haven't been met by the leaders. As we hop on board with Williamson. This has been a very fierce fight for early laps amongst this pair. For a brief while, they were working together. I saw Williamson give a bump draft to the number 28. Doesn't seem to be interested in playing nice anymore, as he's going to go underneath and try and get by. Both of them getting quite loose through 3 and 4, and Johnson has to chase the car. He catches it, but now Kenneth Garber to his inside, 3 wide is to his outside. The number 11 of Barnes still working to try and get through and get a lap. Meanwhile, we had a change for second. Gill just overtook White.
Good run from Isaiah Gill there, but Christopher White not going away whatsoever. Only a couple of car lengths in between these guys. You can really see here at Michigan, the draft is king. If you are able to stay within that draft window, you can keep running strong. So here we see on board with Christopher White, just poking his nose out through the corner, trying to get a little bit of air over that car, not have the full amount of dirty air. He's going to dive down to the inside here, see if he can get a little bit of a run. Nothing doing there. He's going to tuck back in for 1 and 2 now and see what he can do.
Still follows in the tire tracks around 1 and 2. Ooh, he's looking strong off the corner, right up to the wall, but it pays off. The slingshot is in effect, and the 83's got a good chance. No, but he's going to lift before they get to 3.
I think he was a little bit worried about those increasing tire temperatures, just sending that car on a one-way ticket to the wall. That's Dijanowski again. They're coming around back on him. That car has got to come into the pits here shortly, but we're going to stay with this battle. White trying to do a little bit of weaving this way and that, seeing if he can get anything over Gill whatsoever. We'll have to see if he can get the same kind of run he had through 1 and 2 on the last lap.
It looks to me like, honestly, the 24 is all out of shape. The car very, very loose. This time it's going to bite him in a big way as White gets underneath and has an easy overtake into P2. So what can the 24 do to get those tires under control and try and fight back?
Well, it looks like running that high line may be able to help him a little bit. He's got some good momentum there, able to at least draw alongside of Christopher White. And as they cross this timing and storing line, it's going to put Gill back in the lead. So his tires may be going away, but running the outside line, he's able to keep it going.
Wow, I did not think that Gill would fight back that quickly and that successfully. So your leader still Johnson Jr., Isaiah Gill second, White in third. For another time, his attempts at trying to peel P2 away are unsuccessful. Let's jump back away from them to Andy Johnson once again. He and Kenneth Garber are now the two fighting. AJ Williamson has left the pair in the dust, going to the low side. Andy Johnson can't quite keep it stuck to the white line. It drifts up the hill, and Kenneth Garber is going to remain ahead of his festive machinery.
You know, Joe, I lied. Maybe the dirt experience these guys had last week is going to help keep these cars under control, the way the tail ends are sliding around all over the place. Really good car control there from Johnson to not completely lose that car in a skid. There you see him running that high line, trying to go as high as possible, minimize the heat and the wear on that right rear tire, which is so crucial on these big ovals. Now he's just going to tuck back into the draft here, try to see if he can figure out anything to get by Garber.
Staying within that slipstream as they come onto the front stretch once again. Oh, and Christopher White might actually have the pass for second this time. He got past Isaiah Gill going the high side off of turn 4. There you see him in the number 83, up and ahead of the blue and red number 24.
Looks like he just forced Gill down to the low side. We know that Gill likes to run that high line, and he knows he's got good speed up there, so that may be the move we see throughout the race, and see what it can do with that. They're going to drag race down the backstretch here. Gill just stacking right in behind that slipstream. He goes back to the high side. Momentum is going to be on Gill coming out of 4. If he can keep the power down, gets right back into that draft. Can he keep it going?
He gets a decent shot, but not good enough to try and overtake. We'll have to try again later. They are drawing the attention of Travis Barnes once again, who had fallen back briefly. And getting loose. So the dirty air off the car ahead does not agree with the 24. Somehow keeps it from turning around on him. And he's got to try and find a better way to exit off of that second corner. The car is just all over the place.
Oh, you can see both of them there, just how little grip these guys have, slipping and sliding this way and that.
We got another wreck.
Oh!
It's Sean Jones and Chris Torres on the backstretch.
And Garber also later took a massive hit into the attenuator.
Caution is out.
Yeah, this is Garber. You can see him just loses it, tries to get it under control, and wham into that attenuator. That was that very scream I let out, so apologies.
Torres and Jones also made a little bit of contact. This starts with Torres in the 99 start to get loose. The double aught, yeah, you could see it was trying to avoid, and unfortunately, wow. Speaking of a hard hit, just unfortunately caught that opening in the barrier in the wrong place.
You can see it
here. Counter steer.
Oh my goodness, he is driving a dirt car out there. Oh yeah, it just came down absolutely nowhere for Torres to go. He's able to, I thought he was going to be able to catch it a little bit better. Gets a little bit of nose damage there, but Torres has not been into the pits, so he will be able to take a fast repair, get a new car up and under him to keep going.
That honestly leaves only half of our field that hasn't been into pit lane so far during this race. Now, I believe they'll probably want at least one stop for fuel during these 60 laps. I don't think they can make all 60 on the same tank.
No, they are going to need at least one stop, but I wouldn't be surprised if we get another yellow to come in multiple times for tires just to try to maximize the grip. I think that's the big decider here today.
That was quite a long green flag run, though. And good news for fans of Matthew Dichinowski, he's got a fresh car. The bad news is he's 3 laps down already. So that came a little too late for him. He actually is behind Travis Barnes, and we do have regular pit stops here as our leaders are now down on the lane.
And it looks like Ryan Mccloud, the only one who is going to be staying out. Everybody else diving down the pit lane here. So everybody getting fuel and tire service here. Be interesting to see if they take 2 or 4. My guess is 4 with the heat. But we shall see. Everybody coming to a nice stop in their box up on the jacks to get those tires, and away they will go shortly.
I don't know about this call from Mccloud. I think that he's going to regret that decision, even though he will have track position. Andy Johnson going to be the first one out. Then it's Christopher White, Isaiah Gill, and Chris Torres. Now, wasn't Williamson behind them? Oh, excuse me. It is Williamson behind them. That's Torres, who is a lap down. So that is not for position. In fact, we are down to 9 cars left on the lead lap.
You see everybody cycling their way back around here. The good news in this caution is going to be some of those guys that were a lap or 2 down, Travis Barnes, Dichinowski, those guys that will be able to get at least a lap back, start to claw their way forward here. So that's going to be really good.
absolutely invaluable to them, I'm sure. And we've packed things back together. Let's not forget that the drivers will now have much closer racing for a short time. We'll have the slipstream of those that they're trying to chase. Let's see if we get the lights off on the pace car this time. Believe we should. Seeing the... There we go. Yep, lights are off.
Now, it's going to be interesting. If you remember on that last restart, Eric Johnson had a mega restart, just timed it absolutely perfectly. Ryan Mccloud, though, he's going to be the one to control the field, so we'll have to see what he does and how Johnson can respond to it. So that's going to be a big decider here. Trying to figure out what will happen. Gill and White behind them, going to be very interesting to see. We've got a lot of really fast cars stacked up. Everybody's going to try to time this right, and remember, it looks like that high line's going to be the fast one, so watch those outside cars to really have an advantage coming through 1 and 2.
I thought they were going to wave a few cars through, but Dichanowski was sent to the end of the longest line, it appears, as he's dropping back. So he unfortunately won't get one of those 3 laps back this time, and we're getting close to halfway through the race, so he's running out of opportunities to try and get a decent finish here today in Michigan. Ryan Mccloud on old tires in the number 88 on the bottom side. There you see him and the red and white machine. To his outside, the man who's been very quick during this race, the number 14 of Eric Johnson, hasn't been challenged much. Is this going to be a contest, or will this be over quickly? Green flag is out. They start to take up, but they can't go past the 88 until the start-finish line. Going up on the high side, though, that is the number 28 of Andy Johnson.
Absolutely mega start from Andy Johnson, taking full advantage of the iRacing rules, which say you can pass on the outside before the start-finish line. And look at that lead he is pulling out. That's 5, 6, 7 car lengths over Eric Johnson. Ryan Mccloud all the way back in 6th. Those old tires just proving a boon to him there.
Yeah, he is going nowhere right now on those old tires. In fact, the speed difference is visible between himself and the other cars. Now that Johnson has the track position over, Andy Johnson has the track position over Eric Johnson, can he hold him back? When behind them, don't forget about Isaiah Gill. He'd love to get involved with this too. He's become something of a rival for Eric Johnson over the course of this season. He's about 0.4 of a second behind, so he's going to have to claw some of this forward as we ride on board, traveling at 185 to 180 miles an hour around these 2 miles.
And you see there that live timing and scoring, that live speed, just how much these drivers really have to feather the throttle coming through the corners, making sure they don't over-rotate the cars like you're driving on dirt to do that throwback. You can see, though, that battle really starting to heat up between Johnson and Johnson up ahead. Eric diving down to the inside, trying to take an advantage away from Andy. Oh, look at that counter steer from Isaiah Gill. Good for him to be able to keep the car under control. But I think Eric Johnson may have a little bit of a long run here. No, but that is, I think, Christopher White diving out to the inside.
Yeah, the looseness from the 24 opened the door for Christopher White. He is up to P3. Once again, surprised to see the low line for the number 14. He might actually be able to do something here as he's managed to get side by side with the 28. Andy is going to be able to lead this lap, but just barely. Down back into 1. Eric Johnson figuring out to use the low line the way others have not. And this time, though, he falls back a little bit. It may be a shorter line, but he's feeling the pinch of those hot tires.
He certainly is, and I really think he was able to get that close because on that last lap, Andy Johnson got very squirrely, very loose coming out of 4. He's going to be mindful of that this time, maybe be a little bit more cautious on the throttle to try to keep everything nice and in a line. You can see that tail end, though, wanting to slide out, but there he goes, Andy Johnson. They almost touch. There he's going to come. Eric's going to lead at the line.
Just had to get out of it. The two of them getting less than a foot away from one another. Eric Johnson Jr. was ahead at the line, but is he going to be there next time through? Oh, the 28 way too high, has to lift, and unfortunately the interrupted speed catches him out. Below them all, Christopher White, the quickest of them all, the 83 up to the front for the first time in this race. Eric Johnson Jr. all the way to third as Isaiah Gill now up to P2.
Really heads up driving there from White and Gill to be able to just take advantage of that mistake on a tricky track like this. Sometimes that's all you can do is just stay alert, stay focused, and stay right there. White leads at the line, Gill behind him, Eric Johnson, Andy Johnson behind them, and AJ Williamson just stalking behind all of this, waiting to collect the pieces.
The 28's trying to run a very high line, but it seems to not be working. He continues to fall back and now loses fourth to AJ Williamson. Or will he? They're side by side on your screen. AJ on the low side in the red and white, the green and red of Andy Johnson on the high side. Down through 3 and 4. The 2 is now solidly in P4.
He's going to be trying to work his way up forward, though. Williamson really having a good run, taking full advantage of Andy Johnson. Johnson, I think, may have just overcooked his tires a little bit as he tried to hold on to that lead. But up front, there you can see it. Eric Johnson getting that low line to work once again. He's going to slide right up behind Isaiah Gill. Great spatial awareness there from Johnson. And they're going to go through 3 and 4 now. It looks like Johnson's just going to stick right behind and not try to make a move until they cross the start-finish.
Single file for our top 5. Ooh, and they're getting very close to the wall. In fact, AJ Williamson perhaps inches away from that safer barrier on the exit. We are past the halfway point officially. Things getting close for second as Eric Johnson seems to have collected himself, and he's on the attack for the number 24.
He's going to be on the attack and trying to really go in there, as there you see Eric Johnson trying to poke his nose around again, getting anything. It's not going to happen here. Isaiah Gill really running that outside line to perfection, but that tail wants to get a little slippy. They get very close coming off the line. It's going to be nothing between them, though, as they get to the start-finish.
14's got the advantage. He has the inside and a nose ahead as they flirt with disaster, nearly banging wheels multiple times. Christopher White's, I'm sure, loving this. 14 can't find the grip on the bottom side. He falls back, and in fact, his momentum is interrupted so greatly. Here comes the number 2. He could get onto the podium.
AJ Williamson, I said he was just holding back there and waiting. And that waiting is proved off here. He's going to go to the inside line. He's got to make sure that car doesn't slide up too much. He's able to keep it back under him. But that, very close to the outside wall. But that slide, catching that slide, cost him valuable tenths of a second. So Williamson now falling back behind Johnson. Big gap in between those, maybe 6-7 car lengths.
This is our best fight on the track right now. The others, mostly behind them, are a lap down or so and separated. Better run for the 14 this time as he carries the speed well off of turn 2. He gets a nose ahead of the number 24, but Gill's going to try and send it in deep down into 3. Doesn't look like it's paying off as it's getting all sorts of sideways. Can he catch it? He's trying to, and he got it. Holy cow. He lost the position, but he's still living to tell the tale at least.
Oh my goodness, we're going to go on board with this. This is insane.
Counter steer. Oh, talk about dirt tracking. Oh my goodness. Get your brown pants out. That is incredible. Isaiah Gill actually going to get another spot right back because Andy Johnson had a bad exit out of turn 2. That'll put him back into 4th, but he's 2.3 seconds off of our leader now.
I am still just in awe of that driving from Isaiah Gill. Andy Johnson, though, I really think he wore out his tires leading that race. He has just fallen back well off the pace of our leaders. but everybody's starting to space out a little bit more. Andy Johnson holding on to the back a little bit more like of Isaiah Gill than I thought he was going to, but there you see through the corner, Gill really able to use a slightly lower line and really pull away. Even that momentum on the outside line not helping out Andy Johnson.
Now, you know a story that we were talking about and we completely forgot about. Poor Ryan Mccloud is still out there on the same tires. He's the last car in the lead lap and running significantly slower than our leaders currently. If we think those 5 up at the front are having trouble with their tires, spare a thought for this poor guy.
I have no idea how he is still running, to be honest. I mean, he took a big gamble there with these track temperatures as high as they are. It has got to be like driving on glass for Ryan, as it has inked up another degree. It's now 128 on track. So he's got to have zero grip whatsoever in that car.
Even with only 13 cars running, that's probably putting a little bit of heat onto the surface out there. So I'm sure that's just adding to things. Christopher White still leads, and it's half a second between himself and Eric Johnson Jr. Johnson Jr. was leading definitively for much of the first stint of this race, but now that he got shuffled backwards a little bit, he's been finding a few troubles in repeating the feat.
It's surprisingly difficult to pass here. The draft not coming in as much as I thought it would. You know, the absolute just mega heat coming off of everything. It's really not good for drafting through the corners. You're not able to take full effect of the air, as we see here White going super defensive, though, trying to break a little bit of that draft. Maybe just move to a part of the track that hasn't had as much rubber come in, cool the tires ever so slightly, maybe his strategy on that. But he is keeping Johnson at bay for now, although it looks like Johnson was able to claw back a little bit on the exit of 4.
Last lap for Christopher White was a 40.641 compared to Johnson Jr.'s 5.98. So yeah, he's finding a little bit of something there, and he's going to gain here coming off of 2. Nice and steady as we ride on board. Ooh, and he pulls out to deny him the slipstream.
Did that on that last lap too. It's an interesting strategy, and I'm not entirely sure if it's working, because you can see here Eric Johnson closing up majorly, gets a little bit of a crossover coming out of 4. They're going to be in a full-on drag race to cross the start-finish line. It's going to be Johnson by a nose, but this is by no means over.
Is this going to be a game of tire management? Are we going to stay green to the finish and see who can hold up these slippery cars? The 83 gets a little bit of a run, but finds it balked as he tries to take it down to the apex. So the 14 sticks it there and denies him. He's back to the front for many laps. So the 83, oh, and he's going to actually take a look. The white and red machine to the low side. Looks to try and make life difficult for Eric Johnson Jr. Not quite there for him, though. Oh, in fact, the car starts to lose grip at the rear, and White chases it all the way up the hill.
I think, Joe, he may have tagged a little bit of the apron there, and that's what caused that whole slide. So just trying to overdrive that car ever so slightly for Christopher White, not paying off for him. And now Johnson starting to disappear a little bit, a gap of about a half a second growing into maybe, let's call it 0.6. But behind them, we've got some real action, as that's A.J. Williamson powering by Isaiah Gill.
Yep, Gill just couldn't hold on to it, unfortunately. Williamson up into P3, but with about 3 seconds to make up on our top 2. He's got a lot to try and chip away at. Behind them, the pink and black car is Travis Barnes. The first car 1 lap down, still waiting to try and get his lap back, but this has been clean racing up to this point here in the latter half of the race, so it just doesn't look like the chances are going to be there for him to get some sort of wave around, as the 24 is got some speed, but does he have the track? No. Instead, he's going to link up with Williamson, tries to bump draft, and that failed spectacularly.
Williamson hard into the wall there. That bump draft not paying off for these older cars. We're going to go back to replay.
This track, I mean, you can bump draft, but didn't seem like it worked too well there. Oh, pancakes the right side. and the 2 is just going to be a sitting duck for the rest of the race, unfortunately.
He is, and call me crazy, but I think what happened there is I wasn't sure if Williamson didn't know what was going on and tried to move left a little bit, or they weren't perfectly center, but it looks like that's what started it. Williamson moved down to the left side of the track, tried to overcorrect it, and that's what sent him right into the wall. So that's really going to drop him down the order, although he's keeping up relatively well, surprisingly, with the amount of damage that he took off the side of that car.
I thought I saw a piece of the car actually fly off, so I will be amazed if he somehow keeps his speed up and keeps some decent laps going. Let's see what this last one will be. 43.4. Yeah, I think that's a little bit too far off the pace. Compare that to Gill, who's doing a 42.8. That's almost a full second faster.
It is, but he's only a couple of tenths slower than Andy Johnson behind him. Johnson, he really seems to be struggling with tires. But we're going to jump back up here. This is the 24 of Isaiah Gill and Travis Barnes behind him. Now, Barnes is lap traffic, but he is entitled to try to fight to get his position back, and that's exactly what he's going to be trying to do, poking his nose to the inside down that curve front straightaway.
You know, I almost wonder if that bubble also has an effect on other cars, the way they handle, because it seems like anytime they get close to each other, they don't even touch, but they start to wobble all over like they've taken the air off the other car. It's just a very interesting, consistent behavior.
It is, and I'll have to triple check all of that before we come back for the next race, because I don't know off the top of my head exactly where those aerodynamic limitations fall in or fall out. But there you see Gill able to hold it, at least for the moment. Barnes looks like he's going to drift up the track. Good car awareness from him. You saw in the corner of your screen, that is Ryan Mccloud finally coming in on lap 44 to get that fresh set of rubber desperately needed from McCloud.
Not only the rubber, but I think he needed fuel too, just to complete this race. He probably went as far as he possibly could and had to give up the ghost. So he's going to lose yet another lap out of that, as our leaders are separated by about a second. Eric Johnson Jr., now that he's got that clear air, seems much happier in that number 14 machine, just leaving Christopher White back about a tenth at a time.
He is, but he's going to start coming on some other lap traffic here relatively soon. He's got Derek Presley ahead of him and Sean Jones and Kyle Matthews up the road of that, so he'll definitely encounter that before the race is over. We'll have to keep an eye and see what he does.
He's got to last 13 more laps, which is probably easier said than done. Again, we don't know what the tires are going to be like at the end of this thing if this stays green, and the drivers have to continue to have to put up with this. Will they start to fall off a bit of a cliff? Because yes, we saw what happened with Mccloud, of course, but he seemed to be kind of pacing himself. These drivers have been fighting very hard.
Fighting very hard indeed, and it's really taken a time on their lap times. The fastest laps we've seen are 145s, 140s, one in that general area. Current laps that these guys are doing are in the 42s, so about 2 seconds of fall off of these tires. These guys are proving very, very hard to keep everything wound up, but with just over 13-14 laps to go, it's now or never time. They've just got to hope and pray that these tires aren't going to completely go away on them.
Oh, and we got a caution. Sean Jones? Yeah, Sean Jones in the double aught was the cause of that one. And a sweet mercy for our drivers. I have to imagine that pretty much everybody will be coming in. Looks like Jones got a little bit loose, and then he got some help from Kyle Matthews onto the front stretch. Let's take a look at the replay just to confirm here.
And there you see it. That's him catching himself a little bit. We're jumping back. Here we go. And that is him right there in front. You see him diving down low. That's that 00 of Jones behind him, the 20 9 of Kyle Matthews, who gets a little bit squirrely. Yep, just dumping right into the wall. Nothing really he could do. I think he would have had that car caught up under him, but Matthews just didn't know where he was going to go through no fault of his own. He really didn't have anywhere to go, and unfortunately just hit him and sent him flying.
So despite the fact that we're looking at 10 laps to go, everybody in, knowing that there's not enough cars to make track position worth it over those old tires. We did have Travis Barnes stay out to get his lap back, so he's not going to have the rubber, but he's at least going to be amongst drivers who are on the same lap as him finally. Down into their stalls. Who's going to be able to get out first? Oh, a few drivers missed it by a wide margin, including Andy Johnson, backing up a long ways into his stall.
It looks like he just had the complete wrong box singled out for him, but there you see that's the 83 of Christopher White. Gets away best, and he's going to lead Eric Johnson at the line.
Interesting. And that they were about even on pit stop time, so just was better in and out. Now everybody on better grip. Will that make for some better racing, or will it make it all the harder to try and get by anybody? There's the comparison for the times. Well, I guess White was quicker by about a second.
Yeah, just able to get up and gather everything under him and get going nicely. So good job there from Christopher White and his virtual pit crew. Just resetting the field a little bit. That's going to be White, Johnson, Gill, and Andy Johnson, your top 5. I am keeping an eye really quick though, Joe, and he indeed is going to be out. Travis Barnes able to get his lap back, come in, get service, and stay on that new lead lap. So he is going to be right up behind these guys, potentially able to make a run into the top 5 as he currently sits 7th.
Wow, great stuff from the 11. At the 11th hour, essentially. He's going to find himself back into the fray. As I believe we are going to go double file here. Yes, indeed. Well, hopefully double file eventually. This is the least double file I've seen. The drivers trying to get themselves in order.
Looks like they're finally starting to get it there. Everybody lining in. A lot of lap cars mixed in, so that's making it very difficult for our drivers to get everything figured out. Now, Christopher White, this is going to be, I believe, one of his first times being in control of this field. We've been able to see leaders get really good starts or get bogged down like we saw on that last one. So that's going to be very crucial for everybody. And there you're going to see just in the back of your frame, I think Travis Barnes has caught up. He will be able to file in at the back of this field. So watch out for that 11.
From 7th spot is where he starts. That is certainly not impossible to make up in 9 laps. As the Mustang pace car leads the number 83 of Christopher White. He's proven a thorn in the side of the number 14 in today's race. Those two been fighting for the lead. And don't forget about Isaiah Gill back there in the number 24, hungry for victory. Waiting for the green flag. Waiting a long time. Now we get going. Great start from Christopher White. Managed to keep Eric Johnson guessing. He's not going to be able to stay beside him on this restart. Could get the slingshot, though, as everybody behind slowly starts to tick up to speed. What are we going to see down the backstretch? It's been usually the higher side that most drivers want here on this first lap to get the momentum going. Doesn't seem to pay off for any of them, though.
No, everybody plays pretty much evenly. Andy Johnson, though, able to get a good jump. AJ Williamson looking like he had a little bit of a soft start. So these top 5 starting to pull away a little bit from P6 of Jeff Peterson. But here they go down the main straight. You see there White diving down to that inside line, trying to minimize the amount of time he has to spend on track. Johnson says, that's fine. I'll stick it nice and high. Let's see where they go. They're going to file through the corner. Nobody taking a crazy alternate line here. So it looks like everybody's going to try to take advantage of the draft, but Isaiah Gill getting a great run.
Gill approaches to the back of the number 14. Doesn't look like he's got enough, though. Behind him, the two of Williamson seems to have dropped back slightly, so he's not going to be able to challenge these three this next lap. Off of turn 4, here comes the 14. Great speed off the corner and really flirting with the outside wall. Eric Johnson really wants to try and pull one over on Christopher White.
Johnson just throwing everything he can, but that is the fastest lap of the race for Christopher White. Here comes Johnson looking to the inside a little bit, but that's not going to have anything happen. White able to keep those hot tires working on the high side. They're going to stay single file 1, 2, 3 down the back stretch. Christopher Gill just watching all of this and licking his lips, waiting for the moment to be able to take his advantage. They start to concertina up a little bit as they go into turn 3, but spread out once again as they get the power back on.
Behind them, you could see a little bit of side-by-side action between Williamson and Andy Johnson, but Andy's number 28 can't get the job done. He'll stay in P5. Our top 3 coming across the line, barely spread apart by a 10th. As they come down into turn 1, Johnson keeps poking his nose, keeps looking, but can't quite make anything of it. Will he get the shot off of turn 2? It looks good. Immediately, Christopher White ducks down low. I'm not sure if that's breaking the draft or just throwing the block. Either way, it will prevent Eric Johnson Jr. from having a shot this time.
And a good little bit of drifting back onto the racing line there from Christopher White, kind of surprising Eric Johnson, I think, a little bit, cutting off the air from him, but Johnson not having any of it, staying right up behind him. Here they go into one. Johnson diving up to the outside lane, but White still has the advantage. That means Johnson, though, is going to have a little bit of a better arc here, but I think he's got to check up ever so slightly, but able to keep the power going. Here they go into another draft down the back straight. Here comes Johnson out to the inside. No, thinks better of it. Moves back into the draft. He may pop out again, though, before they go into 3.
The red and white number 83 is doing everything he can and pulling every trick in the book to see if he can retain this lead for 4 more laps off of the corner. Different lines between all of our top 3 runners. It's going to be a close one. Will we stay green to the finish as well, especially if this gets intense?
Well, intense it already is, I would say, as here comes Isaiah Gill with a good run off of 2. He looked like he, for a second, was going to have something. There you go, see White diving way down to that inside line, really driving defensive, trying to break that draft. Gill, though, staying right up behind Johnson, not letting any of that air slip away from him. They're going to keep going on through here, through 3 and 4. White continues to lead. Johnson second, Gill third.
It's starting to look like the 14 is looking a little unsteady. The car sliding off the corners. I almost think that's what cost the 14 more off of turn 2 last time, and he's going to hit the wall. He manages to catch it as he banks off the safer barrier. How damaged is it, though? It looks a little wobbly. He's got control of it, but now it is up to Isaiah Gill in the 24. 2.5 laps to try and chase down Christopher White.
And it looked like that was the same incident that befell Travis Barnes early in the race, just getting a little too friendly with that safer barrier on entry to turn 1. But in the meantime, here comes Isaiah Gill. He's got about a 2-3 car disadvantage to Christopher White up ahead of him, trying to do absolutely everything he can. 2 to go here now that they've crossed the line. Gill trying to chase down White.
Behind them, A.J. Williamson spies third place with the damaged number 14 just in front of him. You can see him there at the back of the picture as we jump over to the number 2 with a good shot off the corner. Thinks about trying to get his nose in, then decides he doesn't have enough. No, he changes his mind again. He is going to get to the inside, and Eric Johnson Jr. cannot defend that one. He is just limping. We are down to the white flag as our leaders come across, and it is a 1/10 of a second between Gill and White, side by side for third as Williamson and Johnson try to sort out the final podium position. What is the order going to be amongst our top 4? Looks like up at the front, Christopher White with the advantage once again goes down low. Gill follows him. Lap traffic in front, Sean Jones. He is going to stay low and out of the way. No, he starts to drift up a little bit. That causes some hesitation for the 83, almost making contact with Gill. Somehow keeps the car from spinning around, and 83 Christopher White is going to win here at Michigan.
Amazing run there from White. Helped out a little bit. There's a little bit of carnage in there behind with AJ Williamson, I think, getting into the back of that lap traffic. But Eric Johnson crossing the line in 4th, Andy Johnson in 5th, and Travis Barnes getting by Jeff Peterson, coming home in 6th after those early lap crash.
Wow, what a finish to this race. And that was a fantastic run for 60 laps here at Michigan. We're going to come back after a short break, and we'll bring you the unofficial results. If you stick around, you'll see all the driver interviews. Welcome back to Michigan International Speedway. The South Sound Speedway eRacing Series found themselves with a stunner today, all the way down to the finish, and that man took victory. Christopher White with the win in the number 83 machine. Isaiah Gill was the one who chased him home at the very end, and he took second place. AJ Williamson took third. Off the podium, Eric Johnson was the one who seemed most likely to take the victory today based on mid-race pace, but unfortunately found himself suffering by the end. Andy Johnson finished in 5th with Travis Barnes in the 6th position. Jeff Peterson was 7th and the last driver on the lead lap, with the first half of the field being rounded out by Christopher Torres. DJ?
Derek Presley was able to put the car home in 9th, followed by Ryan Mccloud. That alternate tire strategy not working out for Ryan today. But coming home in 11th was Sean Jones. Matthew Dzianowski coming back from that damage that we saw, finishing in 12th. Kyle Matthews 13th. Kenneth Garber 14th, and William Potts 15th. That rounds out your finishing order.
We've got our 4th place finisher ready to talk to us, Eric Johnson Jr. So let's pull him in and see what he thinks about how that race went. Probably a little bit disappointing because Eric, in the middle of the race, you seemed like the man to beat, and then the end came around and it looked like it was a struggle.
Yeah, for sure. You know, those guys are really good drivers, and thanks to a lot of these guys, they showed up and put the effort in to really help me build this setup to what it was. And yeah, throughout that race, we really got a good strong run in the beginning, but definitely made a big mistake there at the end that cost us.
Now, we're talking a lot about the new cushion of air that
Yes.
is possible in these cars. How much were you feeling it out there?
Oh, I mean, that was the thing. I think that, one, my speed to get out front had absolutely nothing to do with my skill level or anything about that. It was definitely, I figured out in practice, these cars really struggle in the draft. So trying to get clean air is a huge, huge thing. And that's really where you can make up some serious time. And of course, me trying to get as much clean air as possible, put her in the fence. So just got to clean those kind of things up.
Clearly, still, you're off the podium, but fourth place is going to rack up, I'm sure, some valuable points. Do you look forward, I guess, after our break to the next track and have high hopes?
You know, we go back to when we return to the Legends at Lanier, and we did all right there last year, but really that's a big driver's track. So I'm sure you'll see a lot of those guys like Isaiah and Travis jump back up there. But there's a few races I got my eyes on. We got 2 more road courses coming up, so hopefully I can get it done there and close out the deal for the first time in the series.
Well, watch out on the road courses for Eric Johnson Jr., who finished 4th here today in the number 14. Up next, we've got 6th place finisher Travis Barnes, who had a similar issue to Eric Johnson Jr., but on the other end of the race.
Travis, it looked like you obviously clipped that wall a little bit hard early in the race, but heck of a charge up through the field. How was it out there? Travis, can you hear me?
It looks like we don't have Travis with us here to talk to us. We'll hand him back, see if he can get that one sorted out. In the meantime, the winner has joined us, Christopher White. And Christopher seems to have played this one masterfully. Not just your pace out there, but some beautiful defense, sir.
Yeah, you know, there in the end, it was a dogfight to the finish line, for sure. But it worked in our favor.
Certainly did. We saw a lot of drivers seem to get pretty loose as the tires continued to wear off. It was hot temperatures on that track. What did it feel like inside the car when at the end of those long stints?
Well, you know, I wasn't sure what I was going to do, actually. I haven't really turned much practice until I got in tonight and started getting a feel for it. The car was fast, for sure. And like Eric said, you know, the clean air out front was really good. But on the long run, he was even able to chase me down and take the lead back. He was just really loose, really, really loose.
So we talked about heading to Lanier to Eric Johnson before, but I want to talk about the fun round up next, where we have the 87 Cup cars. Are you looking forward to that?
Yeah, I can say I am, actually, because ever since they released those cars, I've maybe got in them a time or two just to test them out and see how they are. Never actually raced them, so it's going to be a whole new ballgame. Definitely excited, though.
It's a very raw car, I can tell you that from my experiences in it. Congratulations, Christopher, and feel free to thank whoever you want to thank on the way out.
Certainly, this is actually my home track. Originally, I'm from Michigan, so it's nice to come out here, run good, sit on the pole, and driving into victory lane for this South Sound E-Series league that we got going on here. Yeah, got Interstate Synthetics on the car. I kind of run that on the side to my day job. It's AMSOIL, selling AMSOIL. So if you're interested in AMSOIL, check out interstatesynthetics.com. And got to throw a shout out to you guys doing the broadcast. It's very appreciative of you guys. Excellent broadcast to go back and watch. And then to everybody that comes in and races here, puts all the work into putting these sets together, and just coming out here and having fun. Looking forward to the next one.
We are as well. That was our winner, Christopher White, who managed to lead the right laps today, I guess you could say, even though he wasn't up front the whole race long. Now, why don't we thank a few people before we head out, including our sponsors, which includes Key Property Services. Again, you can find them at kpsinc.net. That's kpsinc.net. And of course, United Roofs, and their website is simply unitedroofs.com. Thanks go out to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast listed on your screen. And we want to give a big thank you to June Lalonde, who provides our music. Her Bandcamp is there on the screen if you want to go check out more of her work. Thanks to the team today, DJ, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. If you'd like to support us, check out our merchandise store, which is simply gsrc.storeenvy.com. If you don't want to type that in, a link is in the description below. While you're down there, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, you'll notice that the subscribe button is big and red. That means you got to click that so that you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. As we mentioned, the next round is not going to be for points. It's just going to be for fun. That'll be at Charlotte and the 87 Cup cars. That'll be Saturday, January 2nd at 10 p.m. Eastern. We have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.